I still remember the way the morning sun filtered through my blinds that day, soft, golden, almost mocking. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, the day my only son, Ethan, got married. I had my suit pressed the night before, his favorite tie, the one I wore at his graduation, hanging neatly by the door. I even rehearsed my speech 3 times, just to make sure my voice wouldn't tremble when I told everyone how proud I was of him. But somehow, life has a cruel sense of humor. My flight had been delayed, not by hours, but by minutes. Just enough for everything to fall apart. The wedding was in Portland, and I was flying in from Denver. The night before, I had a meeting that ran late. I told myself it'd be fine, I'd catch the early flight, land in time, and still make it before the ceremony started. I've spent decades managing tight schedules, running from meeting to meeting, never missing a beat. But that morning, as I watched the gate close with my ticket still in my hand, I felt the cold truth hit me: time doesn't bend for regret. By the time I landed on the next available flight, my phone was flooded with messages, photos of Ethan and his bride, her veil glittering under the afternoon sun. Laughter, music, champagne. I could hear faint traces of it in a video my ex-wife sent me. The sound of their joy, without me. I stood outside the small chapel when I finally arrived, still in my suit, holding the gift I'd picked out weeks ago, a framed photo of Ethan as a little boy, holding my hand. Through the windows, I could see him dancing, smiling. He looked happy, radiant, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe I should just leave. But something in me refused. I had to face him, late or not. I had to see my son. My hand trembled as it reached for the chapel door handle. The laughter spilling through the wooden frame was warm, alive, and it hurt. It wasn't that I didn't want him to be happy. God knows I did. But hearing my son's joy from the outside, knowing I was supposed to be part of it, felt like standing in the rain watching a fire you once started burn without you. The ushers were clearing empty glasses near the entrance, and one of them looked at me with polite confusion. "Are you a guest, sir?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "I'm his father," I said quietly. The words felt foreign, like I was trying to claim a title I no longer deserved. He blinked. "Oh, congratulations, sir. They just finished the ceremony. The reception's inside." I nodded and stepped in. The room glowed with soft string lights, laughter bouncing off the walls. Ethan was at the far end of the hall, spinning his bride, Emma, around on the dance floor. Her white dress shimmered, and his face glowed with the same light I'd once seen when he was 5, holding his first baseball trophy. For a moment, I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching the man he'd become, strong, kind, loved. My heart swelled and ached at the same time. Then he saw me. Our eyes met across the crowd, and his smile faltered, just a flicker, almost invisible to anyone else. I saw confusion first, then surprise, and something like pain. He said something to Emma, then started walking toward me, each step heavy, deliberate. "Dad," he said when he reached me. "Hey, son." My voice cracked, too soft for the noise around us. "You look incredible. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner." He looked at me, really looked at me, and I could see the war in his eyes. "Love, disappointment, maybe both. I didn't think you'd come," he said finally. "I almost didn't," I admitted. But then I realized, I couldn't miss all of it. He nodded slowly, lips pressed tight, the way he always did when he was holding back emotion. Then, to my surprise, he pulled me into a hug. The hug didn't last long, but it lingered in my chest long after Ethan pulled away. For a moment, we both stood there, awkwardly, a father and son who loved each other but didn't quite know how to show it anymore. Then Emma came over, her smile as bright as sunlight through stained glass. "Mr. Hayes," she said softly, taking my hand. "I'm so glad you made it." Her kindness cut through the guilt that had been choking me since dawn. "You look beautiful, Emma," I said honestly. "I wish I'd been here to see you walk down the aisle." She gave a small, understanding smile, the kind only truly good people have. "You're here now," she said. "That's what matters." But it wasn't, not really. As the evening carried on, I watched Ethan and Emma from a distance. The guests clinked glasses, danced, shouted stories that turned into laughter. The band played familiar songs, the kind Ethan and I used to sing in the car when he was little. Every note felt like a reminder of time I couldn't rewind. When the DJ called for toasts, my heart stopped. I had rehearsed mine for weeks, every line about his childhood, every joke about his stubborn streak, every word about the pride that never fit neatly into sentences. I reached into my jacket pocket and felt the folded paper there. Crumpled, damp from my hand. The best man spoke first, Ethan's college roommate, a tall, easygoing guy with a sharp sense of humor. He made everyone laugh. Then came Emma's sister, who made everyone cry. And then, for a split second, all eyes turned toward me. The DJ held out the microphone with an expectant smile. Ethan's gaze met mine across the room, and I could tell, he wasn't sure if I would stand. Maybe he didn't want me to. Maybe he was scared of what I'd say. I opened my mouth, and then closed it again. I think I'll just let the young ones have their moment, I said, forcing a smile. A polite wave of laughter followed, and the attention moved on. No one noticed my hand tremble as I slipped the paper back into my pocket. No one except Ethan. He saw. He always did. The night stretched on like a dream I couldn't quite wake from. Soft lights, laughter, glasses clinking, the band playing one song after another. It was beautiful, almost too beautiful, and that beauty made it harder to breathe. I stayed mostly at the edges of the room, watching Ethan and Emma move through their guests, their joy lighting up every face around them. I wanted to join them, to dance, to laugh, to belong, but something in me couldn't. I was still outside, even though I was standing right there. At one point, an older woman, Emma's aunt, I think, sat beside me. She smiled and said, "You must be the father of the groom. You raised a wonderful man." Her words hit harder than she knew. I smiled, but my throat tightened. I used to raise him, I thought. But at some point, he started raising himself. I remembered all the things I'd missed, the little league games, the late night talks, the heartbreaks he'd handled without calling me. After the divorce, I told myself I was still a good dad, even from a distance. But sitting there, hearing his laughter echo without me, I realized that distance had taken more than time, it had taken presence. Ethan caught me watching him at one point. He was dancing with Emma's mother, laughing at something she said. Then he saw me, and in that split second, his smile softened. He excused himself and walked over, a glass of champagne in his hand. "You're not dancing," he said lightly, his voice carrying a mix of warmth and reproach. I chuckled. "You don't want to see me try. My rhythm retired years ago." He smiled, but his eyes were searching. "You okay, Dad?" I hesitated. "Yeah, just proud, that's all." He nodded, but he didn't buy it. "You should have said something during the speeches." I looked down at the glass in my hand, the bubbles rising and fading. "Didn't want to take the spotlight," I said quietly. He didn't reply right away. Then, softly, he said, "You never do." That line, simple, quiet, pierced deeper than I expected. It wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It was just true. Before I could respond, the DJ called for the father-son dance. A murmur swept through the room. I froze, my heart hammering. Ethan looked at me, a small, cautious smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Come on, old man," he said. "Let's not make them wait." The dance floor felt like another world, a circle of light surrounded by faces I barely knew, all waiting, smiling, watching. The band began playing something soft and familiar, the kind of melody that carries pieces of memory within it. I recognized it instantly. "Landslide," by Fleetwood Mac. When Ethan was little, I used to play it while driving him to school. He'd look out the window, pretending not to like it, but I always caught him humming along by the chorus. Now, all these years later, that same song was playing while we stood face to face, him in a tailored suit, me in a tie I'd straightened too many times trying to calm my nerves. He held out his hand. "You remember this one?" he asked. "Every word," I said, trying to smile. "You used to hate it." He chuckled. "I was a kid. I didn't get it." The music swelled, and for a while, neither of us spoke. We just moved, slow, careful, two men with years of silence between them, trying to fill it with rhythm. Every step felt like an apology I couldn't put into words. Every glance carried the weight of the years I'd missed. "You know," he said after a moment, his voice quiet enough that only I could hear, "when Mom told me you couldn't make the flight this morning, I told her I wasn't surprised." The words stung, but I didn't flinch. "I deserved that," I said softly. He looked at me, his eyes steady. "I didn't mean it out of anger. I guess I stopped expecting things from you." That one hurt more. Because it wasn't cruel, it was honest. I took a deep breath. "You have every right to feel that way." I let time win. I let my job, my excuses, everything come first. "But not today, Ethan. Not anymore." He nodded slowly, not answering right away. The song reached its quiet, aching bridge, and I could see his eyes glisten. "I used to wish you'd been there," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "At my games. My graduation. Even when I moved out. I always looked for you in the crowd. I was there sometimes, I whispered. Just too far back to be seen. He laughed, a small, sad laugh that still carried love. That sounds like you. The music faded, and applause filled the room. But for me, the world had gone quiet. Because in that small space between notes, between past and present, I felt something loosen inside both of us. Forgiveness, maybe, or something close to it. As we stepped off the dance floor, Ethan put his arm around my shoulder. You made it, Dad, he said simply.
After the dance, I slipped outside for some air. The night was cool, the kind that carries a quiet hum of celebration from inside, laughter, clinking glasses, distant music. I leaned against the wooden railing outside the venue, the stars blurry against the dark sky. My heart was full, but heavy. That's when I remembered the gift still tucked inside my jacket. The framed photo, Ethan as a boy, about 6 years old, his small hand gripping mine as we stood by the lake near our old house. His smile was crooked, missing one front tooth. I had taken that photo the day before his mother and I told him we were separating. I'd almost left it behind that morning, thinking it was too sentimental, too late. But now, it felt like the only thing left I could give him, something real, something that said I was there once. I took it out, brushing the glass with my thumb. My reflection stared back, older, worn, haunted by time. Dad. I turned. Ethan was standing in the doorway, jacket off, tie loosened. His expression was softer now, tired, but open. You disappeared, he said, walking over. Just needed a breather, I replied. Too much dancing for one night. He smirked. You handled it better than I expected. We stood there for a few seconds, both unsure how to fill the silence. Finally, I held out the wrapped frame. I wanted to give you this earlier, I said. Didn't seem like the right moment. He took it carefully, peeled back the wrapping, and froze. His lips parted slightly as he looked at the photo. Wow, he whispered. I haven't seen this in years. You used to love that lake, I said quietly. You'd spend hours throwing rocks, trying to see who could make the biggest splash. I remember, he said, smiling faintly. You always won. Only because you'd get distracted chasing frogs. He laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard from him since he was a teenager. For a few precious seconds, it felt like we were back there, just father and son, no years lost between us. Then his expression softened again. You kept this all this time. I kept everything, I said. Even the stuff I wish I'd done differently. Ethan looked down at the photo, his eyes glistening. Then he said something I didn't expect. Maybe you can show this to my kids one day, he said. The words hit me like a wave. I didn't know if it was forgiveness, hope, or just love finding its way back in, but in that instant, I realized something simple yet profound. I hadn't missed everything. The reception carried on well past midnight. When the lights dimmed and the last song faded, guests began to drift out in pairs and groups, their laughter echoing faintly across the parking lot. I stayed behind a little longer, helping stack chairs, folding tablecloths, anything to delay the inevitable goodbye. Ethan and Emma came out last. She looked tired but radiant, still glowing from the night. Ethan gave me a quiet smile, the kind that spoke more than words. Thank you for coming, Dad, he said. Really, wouldn't have missed it for the world, I answered, and for once, it was true. We hugged again, tighter this time. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic tears. Just the solid, steady warmth of understanding, fragile but real. When they drove off, headlights disappearing into the dark, I stood there for a while, the silence pressing in around me. Then I climbed into my car and started the long drive back to my hotel. The highway was empty, the lines on the road glowing faintly under the streetlights. For the first few miles, I kept replaying the day in my mind, the missed flight, the first glance, the dance, that photo in his hands. Every piece felt heavy and sacred, stitched together by regret and grace. Somewhere between Portland and the outskirts, the emotions I'd been holding back finally caught up to me. I pulled over onto the shoulder, turned off the engine, and just sat there. The stillness was deafening. I thought about all the years I'd told myself I was doing my best, working hard for his future, providing what I thought mattered. But in chasing success, I'd traded time, and time doesn't trade back. The glow of my phone screen broke the darkness. One new message. From Ethan, thanks for the picture, Dad. It means more than you know. I'm glad you made it. My eyes stung. I typed back slowly, hands shaking a little. I'll never miss another moment if I can help it. I'm proud of you, son. Always have been. I didn't hit send right away. I just stared at the words, letting them sink in. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was chasing time. I was simply in it. When I finally pressed send, I leaned back in my seat, looked up at the sky, and whispered to the quiet night. I woke up in the hotel room to the kind of silence that feels both peaceful and hollow. The sunlight was cutting through the thin curtains, and for a moment, I just lay there, not moving, staring at the ceiling. My head was still full of the night before, Ethan's smile, the way he'd said, "You made it, Dad." It sounded so simple, but it was the kind of sentence that burrows deep, the kind that stays with you long after the applause fades. I made a cup of bitter hotel coffee and sat by the window. Outside, the city was just waking up, a jogger passing by, a delivery truck humming in the distance, the kind of quiet life that doesn't wait for anyone. I realized I'd been waiting for years, waiting for the right time to fix things, to show up, to apologize. But life doesn't pause for us. We just have to step in, even when we're late. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Ethan, Mom said you're flying out today. Breakfast before you go." I smiled, a real one this time. He wanted to see me again. When I arrived at the small cafe he picked, he was already there, hair still slightly messy, a coffee in his hand. Emma was next to him, scrolling through photos from the wedding on her phone. When she saw me, she grinned and waved me over. "Morning, Mr. Hayes. Or should I say, father of the groom." She joked. I laughed. "I'll take the promotion." Ethan handed me a mug. "Black, right? Still remember," I said. "Some things don't change," he replied. We talked, not like strangers, not like people patching up a broken history, but like family finding their rhythm again. He told me about their honeymoon plans, his new job, the house they were saving up for. I listened, really listened this time, not half distracted by my phone or my own thoughts. Then, as the plates cleared, Ethan said quietly, "You know, when I saw you walk in last night, I felt like a kid again. The kind who just wanted his dad to show up." I met his eyes. "I'm sorry it took me so long." He shrugged, smiling gently. "You made it. That's what matters." It wasn't forgiveness written in words, but it was there, in his tone, in the space between us that no longer felt so far apart. When we said goodbye outside, he pulled me in for another hug. And this time, it wasn't out of duty or emotion, it was natural. Easy. The kind of hug that comes from finally letting go of old ghosts. The flight home was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you think too much. I watched clouds drift past the window, silver and slow, and felt a strange calm in my chest. For the first time in years, I wasn't rehearsing an apology in my head. I wasn't trying to fix what had already broken. I was just grateful. When I got home, the house felt different. It had always been too still, that kind of stillness that comes from living alone for too long, but this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt like a place waiting for something new. On the kitchen counter, I set down my luggage and the envelope of photos Emma had printed and given me at breakfast. "For you," she'd said with a smile. "Proof you were there." I spread them out one by one, Ethan laughing, Emma's smile, the dance floor, the sparkle of the lights. And there, tucked between all the moments, was one of me and Ethan mid-dance, my hand on his shoulder, both of us smiling through the weight of everything we didn't say. I sat there for a long time, just staring at it. The photo wasn't perfect, my tie was crooked, his expression a little blurry, but it was real. Proof of something mending. That night, I dug through an old drawer and found a dusty box labeled Ethan's stuff. Inside were old drawings, baseball tickets, a few birthday cards with childish handwriting. I added the new photo on top. It felt like closing a circle that had been open for decades. Later, I called him. He answered after one ring. "Hey, Dad," he said, casual, but warm. I just wanted to say, I hesitated, not wanting to make it heavy. "I was looking at those photos. You and Emma, you looked happy." Really happy. We are, he said simply. And, you know, having you there, it made it better. I smiled into the silence. That means more than you think. He paused. You know, we're having a small family dinner when we get back from the honeymoon. Nothing big. Just Mom, a few close friends. You should come. For a moment, I couldn't speak. He didn't owe me that invitation, but he offered it anyway. I'd love to, I finally said. Good, he replied. This time, don't miss your flight. I laughed, the sound surprising even me. Deal. After we hung up, I stood by the window, watching the city lights blur into the night. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was living in the shadow of the past. I was part of the story again, not the perfect father, not the man who did everything right, but the one who showed up, even if it was late. 2 weeks later, I stood on Ethan and Emma's porch, a small blue house at the end of a quiet street. The sound of laughter spilled out through the windows, soft and warm. I could smell something cooking, garlic, maybe, or rosemary, and it hit me how long it had been since I'd walked into a home that felt like family. For a moment, I hesitated. Old habits die hard. Part of me still wondered if I truly belonged. But before I could knock, the door swung open. Dad. Ethan grinned, pulling me into the light. You're early. I laughed. I figured I'd make up for the last time I wasn't. Inside, the house was alive, music playing, glasses clinking, the low hum of people talking over each other. Emma waved from the kitchen, apron dusted with flour. You made it, she said, echoing Ethan's words from the wedding night. I smiled. I'm not missing anything else. Dinner was easy, filled with laughter, teasing, and stories that flowed like they'd never stopped. At one point, Ethan handed me a beer and sat across from me. You know, he said, I've been thinking about that picture you gave me. Oh, I asked. He nodded. I hung it in our hallway. Right by the front door. Every time I walk out in the morning, I see it, me and you by the lake. Makes me remember where I come from. I felt something tighten in my throat. That means a lot, son. He smiled. I guess, I just don't want to lose what we started again. You won't, I said. Not if I can help it. We clinked bottles, and in that small, unspoken moment, the years of distance seemed to dissolve, replaced by something stronger, quieter, truer. After dinner, as the guests filtered out and the night softened, I helped Emma clear the table. She paused, smiling. He's happy you came back, you know. He talks about you all the time now. I nodded slowly. I'm just happy I still get to be here. When I finally left, the air was cool and still. I turned back once before getting into my car. Through the front window, I could see Ethan and Emma laughing together, a soft yellow glow wrapping around them like warmth itself. And as I drove home, the words replayed in my mind, you made it, Dad. This time, they didn't hurt. They healed. Because I finally understood. Being late doesn't make you absent. Missing moments doesn't make you unworthy. What matters most is finding the courage to walk through the door, even when the music has already started.